basically, I started going to Korea. I've been there 8 times, and I started making a documentary, doing some video art, working with the Korean Cultural Centre London, and collaborating with people there. And alongside this, I was also making films, and I've made one film at least, which let's say talks about the Korean diaspora. It's a story of loss. It's dual language, so it's English, Korean. It talks about subject matters that are close to my heart, like the Sewol Ferry tragedy, which happened in 2014 in Korea. I can elaborate on that if people want to know more. The comfort women situation, and also some other stuff that happens in Korea. So have I said too much so far? Do you want me to stop? I can. Yeah, so, oh, yeah. So, what was that, sorry? Ah, yes, well, yeah, good question. I was actually making a documentary at the time regarding Korean culture in general. Now, this was just before Gangnam Style, so it was before Korea got, more well known, let's say. Um, and it wasn't like a controversial documentary. It was going to be touching on those subjects I mentioned earlier, because I didn't want it to be a documentary that was, let's say, about the surgery in Korea or the suicides or the negative things, but I also wanted it to be about culture, but also about the pain in Korea's history. So it's a bit of a convoluted documentary. It had some structure, but in the end it became sort of a couple of different video arts. I do want to put a documentary together which will have a slightly different structure, but the footage is getting older, and I've got a lot of interviews that I recorded with people. So yeah, it was more about Korean culture in general, but there was a heavy focus on Korean cinema. So, see, another thing I did with my website alongside this was not just film reviews. I was interviewing quite a lot of Korean directors that we had that came to visit us in London, and a few actors from Korea. We're going back as far as like the London Olympics in 2012. So everyone in London, the Korean Cultural Centre included, they wanted to create a big buzz, and they did. So we had one different director every month. So I interviewed those, and those things can be found on my website if you're interested. I haven't updated it for a few weeks, but been busy. I'm out in Asia at the moment. Just to preempt you, in case I sound a bit tired, it's quite late. I mean, I'm actually in Thailand at the moment. I've recently spent 3 months in South Korea, which is my longest time there. I'm hoping to go back this year. I was also at Busan International Film Festival, which is Asia's biggest film festival, so I saw lots of Korean cinema. Lots of Korean films, and I just have a passion for Korean cinema and other Asian cinema, but Korean cinema in particular because of the way the films are created, structured. They mix a lot of genres together. Some people say that's because of their tumultuous history. It's been up and down, lots of pain, but they always put comedy into the films, they all put tragedy into the films, they'll put romance, death, laughter, all these things into one film. So even the film you're going to watch, it might be a certain genre, but it won't stick to that genre, I'm pretty sure. I haven't seen the film, so I'm interested as well in this. Sorry, that's a long answer to your little question. Yeah, sure. Well, we've got the Korean War, so that was a big thing that happened. Um, Before that, I mean, you could say the colonization. We had the Manchurian, the Chinese, the Japanese colonization, which is still, to lots of people in Korea, it's still a big issue. You know, there's lots of things that haven't been resolved. For example, the the thing I mentioned very briefly earlier, which is comfort women, which was so to me that's tragedy. You know, girls as young as 14 were sex slaves due to what happened with Japanese soldiers. It's a big thing. There's actually a demonstration that happens in Seoul every Wednesday. It's the longest running demonstration or protest in history. But every Wednesday, outside the Japanese embassy in Seoul, a group of students and a group of activists get together to basically demand an apology. It's not for compensation, it's just to ask Japan to apologize for what they did. And again, I'm not anti-Japanese, you know, I love Japanese culture, but it's just something that's still a tragedy. And then, of course, the bigger thing, which I haven't really elaborated on, but the Sewol Ferry, which I mentioned briefly, now that was a tragedy that happened in 2014, where 300 passengers on a ferry, you might know about this, going from Incheon area of Seoul to Jeju Island, and it capsized. There was 250 students on board. Sorry, there was more than that, but 250 students drowned because they were told to stay put. So it was like Titanic for Korea. It was, you know, there's still people in Korea are still feeling the pain, basically. And there are films out there that documents quite a few documentaries from different angles, but also there was a fiction film made called Birthday. And there's been other things about it. I've actually been involved with I say here in London, I'm not in London, but in London, every month for 8 years, we've had like a 2-hour memorial every month for 8 years without fail, apart from COVID where we went online, just out of respect and to show the parents, who are obviously still in pain, that we still think of them, think of their children and the other people. I mean, the captain jumped ship as well. There was all kinds of stuff. It was there was the media were telling everyone that the passengers were saved, and they weren't. So, other tragedies. You've got other stuff that happened. Before that, way before the Japanese colonization, but you've also got tragedies within Korea that happened, safety tragedies, that kind of thing, and Korea have got this thing that's called, it's difficult to explain, but they've got this thing called Han, which is like deep sorrow, and you might already know about this, and so I think when those sort of tragedies happen, and actually in October, just recently in Halloween, there was another, I don't know if you heard about this, but there was a stampede, Halloween, and 150 people died. So again, that's on top of what happened in the Sewol Ferry. So some safety things aren't being adhered to, and it happens in the UK too. I'm not saying Korea is it's a governmental thing as well, because perhaps they should be doing a bit more. Sorry, I go too much about the tragedy, but does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
You can also look like a London massacre if you want domestic tragedy.
Yes, sorry. Yes, sorry. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mention the Gwangju massacre or Gwangju uprising, but also the Jeju Sasam, the Jeju 4-3, which was even bigger than Gwangju. It was where the soldiers would come. It was a thing against anti-communism, where they burnt out everyone on the island, Jeju, and this is a thing that's it's not even known by every Korean really. Like the Gwangju thing was more recent in the 80s, but the Jeju, the Jeju thing was a few decades before. There's a film. Oh no, yeah. Have you seen A Taxi Driver? Not sure if you've seen that one. That's about the Gwangju uprising. It's fictional, but it's based on truth. It's Song Kang-ho is in it. But yeah, so there's that, and there's also there's navy bases being built all around South Korea, and so I'm quite passionate for these causes. Yeah, maybe that's why when I made my most recent film, they touch on this. But there's also parallels with incidences in UK, like the Grenfell tragedy, where a building basically burnt down pretty much because it wasn't safety requirements weren't adhered to. Yeah. Yeah, good question. Basically, if I go right back, it was probably when I came to Asia for the first time, I got into Asian culture, Thailand, then India, and I wanted to seek out Asian films really, because Hollywood was also boring me a bit. It wasn't challenging me, and I started to watch a lot of Japanese cinema, and then the Korean Cultural Centre, because Japan doesn't really need to promote itself as much as Korea did at the time. So that's the way I looked at it. So the Japan Centre in London, or Japan Foundation, they would have a film every couple of months. But the Korean Cultural Centre were having, I think it was every fortnight, a free film, a random free film that they would screen. And it was always full up, pretty much always full up. And it got me interested in the culture. So what I see on the screen was this lovely sort of peaceful country with obviously different etiquette to what we have in the UK, different hierarchies, different dress, different food. And that's another thing in Korean film, and I'm sure in this one, you always have scenes of people eating, because eating is a big thing in Korean culture, or is with community. It's a big part of community, family, friends, workplaces. And so what I saw on screen, I just simply wanted to go there and get into the culture. And it wasn't because of Korean pop at all. It was because of later a year or two later, I got into indie music in Korea. I got into artists in London, Korean artists, they're everywhere. And I think this all came from Korean cinema. So what I saw on screen, it just attracted to me. I was a bit naive when I went to Korea. I even thought that some places were still, maybe more old-fashioned than I thought, where it's quite a modern place. I mean, when you go to Korea, there's a great contrast of old and new, and you've got old hanoks which are disappearing. That's the old Korean houses, and you've got skyscrapers, but you've also got a country that's got 70% mountainous area around it. So all around Seoul you can see mountains. Actually, on my most recent trip, I finally did a temple stay for a couple of nights, and I'd never done that in all my 7 trips before. And South Korea is a religious country, so it's multi, religion. But I'm quite interested in the Buddhist side. But obviously there's a lot of Christians. I've got lots of Christian friends, and it's yeah. And again, that's partly due to the history as well, and maybe the influence from other countries. Yeah, so that's where the culture really started, from the cinema. And of course, then I was exploring restaurants in London. I was quite lucky living in London because we've got so much variety with restaurants from around the world, but also we've got somewhere where I was doing my podcast from with my friend. It was in Europe's biggest career town, which is in New Malden, which is just outside a city called Kingston. So you had the biggest population there, and you know, it's a lot of familiar faces that I've worked with, and yeah, the culture. I just got right into the culture, you know. And of course, I'm not an expert, but you can't help but start getting more interested in what people tell you and what you read. Yeah. So that's where it all started. It was due to a trip to Asia, but then Korea was what really got me. You know. That I've got a couple, but that particular one, which is Korean, it's called. I think it should be on the back. It should be on the. It might be on the thing on the banner, but it's called the Not So Korean Podcast. Now I took the word "not" from north and the word "so" from south because I just thought it sounded good, but also because we're not Korean, so we're not so Korean. You know, we're just people that know about the culture. We've had interviews with literary experts, you know, authors, musicians, various people that arrange festivals in the UK based around Korea. We're in between seasons at the moment, so we've done 25 episodes of the first series. If you go to my YouTube channel, you can find it. That's Jason K-Town Verney. I put loads of stuff on there, the trailer to my film. It's not like a professional YouTube channel, it's just where I put podcasts and videos and stuff. Yeah, Not So Korean Podcast. It's on Spotify, it's all over the place, but if you want the video version, it's on YouTube. Yeah, so you've probably got all my links if you want to add to me. If you've got any questions afterwards, you can always fire me some, you know, if you want to talk to me privately or whatever, I'm happy to answer any questions later. Or give you some links maybe to some of the stuff I've worked on.
Alright, I think we can end the Q&A now so we can start watching the film. But thank you so much for joining us on the way from Thailand.
No, that's okay. I hope the rest of the week, I hope the rest of the, you know, the festival thing has gone well. The different nights you're doing. Good. Okay, we'll chat later, and yeah, thanks all. I hope you enjoyed the film. Yeah, so I'm going to get to sleep soon. So I've had two long days of driving as well. So, but yeah, all the best.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, see ya. Bye bye.